So I'm really excited about our next session too. And these next two sessions that we have are going to be focused on how we bring in our value chain into these conversations. And we're going to start with a conversation with a company that's doing a lot of upstream work to build and bake in transparency and sustainable climate smart sourcing into their practices. And then we're going to look down at consumer engagement. So we've got an exciting hour ahead. I first want to invite up the Foodstirs team. We're going to have a conversation moderated by Catherine DiMatteo, who you've seen this morning, and the Foodstirs team, Sarah Michelle Gellar, co-founder and chief creative officer, Galit Laibow, co-founder and CEO. I really hope I pronounced it right, Galit, and Greg Fleishman, chief operating officer and co-founder. So please come up on stage and enjoy the conversation, you guys.
Good afternoon. Thank you, everyone, for coming back this afternoon. And I'm very excited to be here on this panel this afternoon and to introduce you to these three innovators and passionate people who have a story to tell. I'm going to ask them quickly just to explain why and what you're doing, and then I do have a set of questions for you.
All right, hi everyone. We're so excited to be at Expo. This is quite a journey. This is our fourth or fifth Expo, not since we've been actually, well, your 25,000th Expo, but our couple years. But we'll tell you a little bit about Foodstirs. Foodstirs was pretty much out of selfishness. We're pretty selfish here. It was out of a need that we had as parents to create meaningful experiences for our children that we didn't see existed in the marketplace at the time. So a few years ago, we wanted these kitchen experiences, being busy parents, and we thought what better way than start with desserts. The aisle was filled with chemical ingredients and whatnot, so we decided to help clean that up and use awesome ingredients. And when we were thinking about the business, we really wanted an opportunity to, align ourselves with something that we believed in, and instead of going a traditional route where a lot of companies, which is totally fine, aligning ourselves with a charity or some other do-good service, we really decided to look at ourselves and our own business and the practices that we took on, and we decided that we really wanted to provide the cleanest, most sustainable ingredients and use that as our give back. So great for our partners, great for our consumers, but most importantly, great for our environment.
All right. Anything to add, Greg?
Oh, I think it's good. I think when you do right by the world, it feels like there's always some implied sacrifice that you have to give up. And to extend what Galit was saying, we wanted to create a brand that you could still do great things for the world and there wouldn't be any sacrifice. You would only be awesome. So we did that with something that was ultra clean label, using ingredients that really regenerate the planet, particularly healing the soil. That was something that was easy and convenient, that would fit nicely into consumers' lifestyles, and that tasted amazing. So delivering on all those three it feels like an impossibility when you're trying to save the world, but we managed to accomplish it. Okay. And are doing it every day. Hasn't ended yet.
Great. And so, Michelle, tell us a little bit about these clean ingredients that you decided that you would focus on in your products.
Well, I think for us it was about finding what would be not only the best tasting, the most ethically sourced, and the best possible to bring to our consumer, but also at the same time keeping in mind the price issue, because it's great if you have this wonderful, clean, fairly traded, great, everybody gets health insurance and your product is $49.99 for a cake mix. So for us it was about really making direct contact with these people. I think at the end of the day, there's so many middlemen now, right? You hire this person to source this, to source this, to source this. And what we found is if you want something done right, you do it yourselves. So whether it was identifying the right chocolate, and instead of hiring someone whose Spanish was way better than mine and having them, figure out how to, work together, the three of us got on a plane and went down to Peru and knocked on the door and said, this is who we are, in very broken Spanish, mind you. And this is what we hope to accomplish, and we'd like you to be our partners. And I think that when you see firsthand, when you have that dialogue, that's when you don't allow mistakes to happen. That's when you see firsthand how these farmers are getting treated, how the drivers are being treated, how you can really have traceability because you're the one taking responsibility for it. And so that's, I think, how we've moved forward for each ingredient that we use and each ingredient that we add is, identify and then make those connections and see with our own eye what's actually happening.
Yeah. So, Greg, what standard do you use in selecting these ingredients? Are they organic? Are they biodynamic? Are they regenerative? Are they, I'm going to get to fair trade in a minute, but.
Yeah, we have a set of criteria. They have to be affordable, they have to taste good, be in ample supply. When it comes to cleaning up the world, regenerating the planet, they have to have that to them. So organic and non-GMO is the base, but we've plussed that up with biodynamic, I'd argue, the purest form of agriculture. No chemical inputs used. And then we've been using identity-preserved single-origin flour that you can trace back to the acre. So those are all the 5, 6 basic criteria we use for all of the ingredients that we source. And they have to have purpose behind them, and they have to do something beyond just making the product taste good or be affordable. They generally have to improve the quality of the world and the quality of the planet. The bonus, like we always say, though, there is no sacrifice. When you source the purest stuff on Earth that does heal the planet, they tend to taste amazing when you can curate them effectively into a recipe. And I would add to this that, we're obsessed control freaks, so building out our own recipes. When we go down to Peru, we're going to Montana, we partner with our suppliers. They can see the scale that we're building behind our brand, and they will partner with us on costing, which really helps. So we just did our 1 million box run middle of last year. Then they start to see, okay, well, not only are you guys great partners, but we know we can make some money off you. That seems to help.
That's great. And Galit, how many suppliers do you work with?
So we work with, 80% of our baking mixes are made up with 3 or 4 ingredients. So our top suppliers in the regenerative, we work with about 5 suppliers, 5 or 6 suppliers,
And you've had personal relationships?
Yeah, we have direct relationships with all those suppliers. So one instance is our biodynamic sugar. So we sourced that from Paraguay, and we went, Greg's on the board of Demeter, and so we knew we had to get this sugar because you can actually use less because it's more sweet. So we knocked on their door, and we kept calling, and they didn't really take our calls because at the time, maybe we were in 30 retail stores, and they're like, we don't want to deal with you. But we told them our story, and we leverage great ways to leverage our marketing power to say, we're going to bring this to the forefront, to the conversation, and really allow people to understand what biodynamic is. And we were able to leverage great costs and therefore, obviously, give that to the consumer.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to know, you've been very clear about why you've taken this approach and how you're working with your supply chain. Have you thought about, how to grow? How are you going to scale up, for instance, if the 5 suppliers that you're working with, Michelle, if you have to expand beyond that in order to keep up with the demand for your product?
Do it ourselves. I think that's sort of, a logical. Once we start to partner with them, we can also help these companies scale up as well at the same time. We pick these people because of their practices, because of the way they treat their employees, the way they source what they use. And so again, we bring financial resources to them. We can help them expand. We went from using someone to do the farm, the flour, to now we have our own line and we're growing our own.
And to build on that,
and we'll send our kids out to work also.
Yeah, we have
you're going to send your kids
6
to work.
kids between us. They're really good. So we have 3 main suppliers make a majority, and we always have a rolling 3-year forecast with them. I know it sounds so basic, but when you sit down with them every quarter and you say, well, here's what the projections look like, they have the growable acres, and we get to annex it over time and contract grow so that they can meet our demand. But I do feel like sometimes with other companies that I've been involved with, they're overcomplicating it. If you can really dial in on a forecast, if you can share that with your key suppliers and meet with them regularly, they will have that capacity and they will be able to meet our demand. I mean, we always look at where we're going. We never want to partner with some rarefied ingredient, Hope Diamond type ingredient, where there's only 1 acre of it around in the world. That's not going to help us grow, and we're trying to displace all of the bad shit that's out there. So. And
also, when you're using biodynamic farming, you're also, you're putting back into the soil. So usually with a crop, you have to wait another year before you can use that soil. And the cleaner you keep the soil, you can also keep planting, which I think it goes back to how they used to farm,
back in the day,
years and years and years ago.
So talk a bit about the fairness part of this. And you mentioned fair trade several times. Galit, I don't know, would you like to take that, or Greg?
Greg could take.
Yeah, we Peruvian, for Latin and South America, where we source a good chunk of our ingredients, we went with a different form of what they call fair trade. It's UTZ fair trade, and it's bottoms up. Instead of saying what wage, we look at the standard of living for the folks that are growing and harvesting our raw material, and what living do they want to accomplish, and then it gets built out bottoms up, and then we make sure that we're paying a fair wage in order to provide for that quality of life that they're looking for. It's just a different approach. It's, I think, a more common sense, more human approach. And right now, this group that grows such a large part of our recipe is open to doing that type of fair trade. We don't even call it really fair trade, to be honest with you. It's just not a good, appropriate term.
And for us, we've built a relationship with these farmers too. So we're giving back in other ways, like we're providing libraries for schools, solar light bulbs for them, tools that they need to farm. So it's really about, for us, when we talk about building partnership, it is a true partnership, and that's how we're able to get what we do out of it.
And if you really want to improve someone's life, it's not just about looking at the actual person that's doing the work, it's looking at the family and the community as a whole. So yes, it's great to have less work hours and safe conditions, but at the same time, what do you need to bring to the family to make them feel secure so that the person doing the actual work can move forward? And I think that's something that a lot of companies forget to take a look at, and it's something that we pride ourselves on taking into consideration.
So how do you tell your story to your consumers? What do they know when they buy your product?
Well, it's not easy. I think we have label overload, right, on some of these packages. I think some people are it's hard to distinguish some people don't even know that organic is non-GMO, so then we're talking about biodynamic and regenerative. So we have a purity with purpose on our package, so we do that. But we live in the age of social media now, so we leverage our social media, Instagram, Facebook, other email marketing, other creative ways to really make sure we get the message out. We have an awesome co-founder who is able to be on a couple big shows that get a lot of audience and help tell our story as well, and people seem to listen. So
we try to we're not just about clean label. So it's clean label, convenience, affordability, and amazing. That's all part of this upgraded snacking experience. So every touch point, we're communicating all of those things, whether it is social media, our packaging. There's great stories there. We invite people to get involved and learn more, and then our website, and then we do a lot of digital advertising and other places like that. We have an opportunity to inform, educate, and inspire.
All right.
But we do try not to, hit people over the head with it, because they tend to tune out with that stuff.
Trying to build a community, lead by the experience, and then, if you come into the community and you understand what the experience, you want to learn more about what we're about.
What kind of questions or comments have you gotten, aside from how wonderful the products are and how easy they are to make?
Did you make them?
They sent me a box, so
Not
to
just
be
a box.
transparent.
I was like, one box.
A big box
We're
of goods.
We're a startup. We say one box.
No. So if you don't know, there are cake mixes. There's
we have
pancakes
we
and
have
brownies, and
we have oat bars. We have protein bars. I think in answer to your question, I think the biggest comment we get is we can't believe it took so long. I think we've all watched the perimeter of the grocery store really get upgraded, and you see, farm to table vegetables and fruits, and then you get to the center of the store, and for some reason we were all accepting of these legacy brands that were filled with chemicals that honestly really didn't even taste that good, and yet everybody had them in their pantry because there were no other options. So I think the biggest response that we get is thank you. Thank you for not neglecting the rest of the store and understanding that, to eat, you have to eat. You go through all the aisles of the store, and that someone paid attention to the fact that, there's so many different ways to snack. And I think that's the other thing too, is that they didn't realize how much baking can do, not to quote Waitress the musical, but people don't realize that, baking is not just cookies, and it's pancakes, and it's snack bars, and it's all of these protein bars when you're working out, and the fact that we can bring that from scratch taste where you feel better about what you're eating and where it's coming from.
So, what do you wish you knew now, when you started out that you know now?
How hard this is.
Yeah, it's been hard. People don't want to bake. Yeah, that's been a challenge, I think, I think we probably overestimated that all we had to do was say we are organic and people would fall in love with the brand. And I think that we have to do more storytelling beyond that. Wish we know that. But also the work. I mean, who knew it would be 18 hours, flying down to Peru and other parts of the world. And, what do you think, Galit?
Yeah, I mean, but who knew how much fun it would be to try to change the world? I think that, I think every day is a challenge, but as entrepreneurs, I think that's what you thrive on is solutions. When somebody says no, there's always a way, and so we don't, we're big on we don't take no for an answer. So the no's only motivate us to get to the yeses. So hopefully we can do our little part. I mean, a lot. Baking is not super sexy, obviously, but for us, it does. People aren't not baking. We just believe that there's not options, and especially when we talk about kids and fulfilling a need, and hopefully we're building this platform that stands for all these amazing ingredients and community, and we'll be able to extend that to other forms pretty soon. So.
Well, we are here at Climate Day, so I guess my last question for you all is to talk about how does climate and mitigating climate change fit into your thinking and your approach and your product?
Yeah, it's a big part of what we started. I think, so we have 6 kids between us, as Galit said, kind of in the beginning. I mean, we're trying.
Not together.
Not together. Feels like that.
We co-parent.
That would be weird.
It does. We think about our kids a lot. We started the brand because of our kids, and we want them to inherit something great. And when you see the climate and what's going on today, you just want to do as much as you can to make something that they inherit better. So. That's our, answer to that. We're doing everything we can with our brand to make it so that it will improve climate, and we're doing it for our kids, I would say. So.
Okay. So, do we have time for questions? Yes, we do. We're going to open it up.
If we can see.
To
guys, don't all ask at once.
The audience. If you have any questions, we have people with mics. Yep, we have one right here. Laura, right in the front.
All right, ready?
Oh.
What's that?
Sarah Samuel for Dr. Bronner's, and I was just wondering, you said that when you go into Peru and you are looking at the level of income there and you see what's needed for them to live, and you use that to decide what their fair wages are. Who's deciding the fair wages? Is there farmers deciding, or?
So this one organization, UTZ, they are a third party that will assess that, and they determine they're the independent resource here, and they do that in collaboration with the owners of the land. So I think we're lucky in that. I think everybody's lucky in that, and that they are not overly bureaucratic and they're not overly thinking it. So.
Is there other questions? Oh, whoops.
I feel like this could be kind of dangerous.
Yeah.
Lawsuit.
That terrible, tragic microphone accident at Expo West 2019.
Go ahead.
Hi, Rich with Rich Nuts. I have a question for you regarding the regenerative agriculture aspect. How do you measure the impact? What kind of impacts are you having, and how do you measure that?
So for us, on our ingredients, so we have the sugar or sweetener is the majority of the one that you would classify as regenerative, and the second would be our identity preserved. And so they follow biodynamic guidelines that are measuring primarily around carbon sequestration is the ultimate. For us, that's the ultimate measure. There are other things around chemical inputs, the monocropping aspect, so you have to have biodiversity, and then also water conservation. So those are all metrics, but for us, the gold standard is the carbon sequestration that you get through healthy soil that pulls all that bad stuff out of the air.
Hi, I'm Kelly. I wondered if you guys have looked into offering gluten-free, and when you're sourcing gluten-free ingredients, is that almost impossible to do in organic?
Sarah?
I'll take the go for it, Greg.
No, you do.
I think that there is a plethora of gluten-free options out there. They're really, when you go to a store, you see all of these, and unfortunately, I think there's a confusion lately between actual gluten intolerance and actual celiac disease. I think it's something like 3% of the population has celiac. So while it's something that's definitely on our radar and it's something that we probably will eventually target, right now in terms of building a brand, we've sort of gone after the rest of the gluten-eating population. Not to, it's certainly down the line, but to make a gluten-free product like you mentioned, you really have to, it would have to obviously be at a higher cost because of the flour and taking out all of
Or naturally gluten-free, like a banana muffin or something like that. But
Without flour?
we'd use an alternative flour for
Yeah.
that. But
Banana
I think
flour.
you can, our whole thing is around taste, and when you tend to do gluten-free, there are like 150 brands offering gluten-free, so I think that their gluten-free folks are taken care of. But to do gluten-free with a brownie mix could be a challenge to make it taste good. So.
Okay. Well, there's a
Just
challenge
keep
out
asking
there
us
for
on
another
our
company.
site, and then we'll, at some point we'll end up doing it. Get
All
enough
right.
people wanting it.
All right.
Thank
Well, I think I'm getting the cutoff sign, so thank you very much.
Thank
Everyone
you.
thank the
Thank you.
Foodstirs people. Thank you for coming.
You guys can go off that way. Thank you guys so much. It's great to hear a little bit. I think that really ties into one of the themes we're going to cover next.